The transport ship landed on Outpost Car 9 with a loud hiss of steam and metal. The doors opened slowly, and 37 new recruits stepped out into the cold air of the training facility. They came from different worlds and different species. Some were tall and covered in scales. Some floated above the ground with strange powers. Some were made of living rock that scraped along the floor when they moved. Commander Zyrith watched them from the observation window above. He had 4 eyes, and all 4 were looking at the recruits with a cold expression. He had been running this facility for 15 years. He had seen thousands of recruits come through these doors. Most of them failed. That was the point. Only the strongest survived Car 9. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Drellick, stood beside him. Drellick was an insect-like creature with sharp mandibles that clicked together when he talked. He was looking at a data screen that showed information about each recruit. "We have a good mix this cycle," Drellick said. 6 Crothians from the warrior caste. 2 Velthari with confirmed psychic abilities. Even a pair of Morvith, which is rare. "And the human?" Zyrith asked without looking away from the window. Drellick made a sound of disgust. "Another one. The Coalition keeps sending them. I do not understand why they bother." Zyrith finally turned to look at the data screen. The human was a female named Elena Vasquez. Her file said she was 32 years old. She had served in something called the Terran Defense Force for 8 years. Her physical scores were average. Her combat ratings were acceptable, but nothing special. There was nothing about her that stood out. "Look at her," Drellick said. "No claws. No armor. No venom. No psychic power. Humans are so fragile. One good hit and they break." Down below, Elena Vasquez stood at the back of the group. She was shorter than most of the other recruits. Her skin was a light brown color, and her dark hair was tied back in a simple style. She wore the gray uniform that all recruits received, and it was slightly too big for her thin frame. She looked exactly like what the file said she was, an ordinary human soldier who had somehow made it into the galactic military. "Put her with the Crothians," Zyrith decided. "Let them teach her where she belongs in the order of things." "She will not last a week," Drellick said with amusement. "No," Zyrith agreed. "She will not." Neither of them noticed the way Elena's eyes moved across the facility. They did not see how she looked at the guard positions and the camera locations and the weak points in the fence. They did not know that she had already counted 14 violations of Coalition training rules just from them. What she could see, they definitely did not know who she really was. Elena Vasquez was not an ordinary recruit. She was Senior Instructor Elena Vasquez of Terran Special Operations. She worked for the Coalition Oversight Division, which was the group that made sure military facilities followed the rules. She had been sent to Car-9 after the Coalition received reports of abuse and illegal training methods. Her mission was simple: go in as a regular recruit, document everything she saw, and report back. She had asked to arrive with no special treatment. She had asked to be placed in the normal recruit system. She wanted to see how the facility really operated when they thought no one important was watching. So far, she was not impressed. The recruits were taken to a large room for processing. They stood in lines while officers scanned their bodies and recorded their information. Elena waited patiently in her line, watching everything around her. A Crothian recruit stood in front of her. He was at least 7 feet tall, with black scales covering his body and muscles that looked like they could crush stone. His name tag said Rothgar. He turned around and looked down at Elena with yellow eyes. "Human," he said. The word sounded like an insult the way he said it. "I heard there would be one of you in this cycle." I did not believe it. "Here I am," Elena said calmly. Rothgar made a deep sound in his throat. It might have been a laugh. "You will not survive the first week. Humans are weak. Humans are prey. You do not belong here." Elena looked up at him without fear. "I guess we will see." Something flickered in Rothger's eyes. He was not used to prey that did not show fear. But before he could say anything else, an officer called him forward for processing. After processing, the recruits were assigned to their sleeping quarters. Elena was put in Barracks 7, which was the Crothian barracks. This was not an accident. She knew that Commander Zyrith had done this on purpose. He wanted to see her suffer. The barracks was a long room with sleeping pods along both walls. When Elena walked in, 6 Crothians were already there. Rothger was among them. They all stopped talking and turned to look at her. "This is a mistake," said one of them. "The human cannot be assigned here." "Check the roster," Elena said. She pointed to the screen on the wall. "Elena Vasquez, Barracks 7, Pod 12. The Crothians looked at the roster. Her name was indeed there. They looked at each other, and something passed between them. A silent agreement. Rothger walked toward her slowly. He stopped when he was close enough that she had to look straight up to see his face. "Let me explain how things work here, human," he said. "This barracks belongs to Crothian warriors. We are the strongest species in the galaxy. We have conquered 100 worlds. We do not share space with prey animals." He reached past her and grabbed her sleeping pod. With one hand, he ripped it from the wall and threw it across the room. It crashed into the recycling unit with a loud noise. "Prey animals sleep on the floor," Rothger said. "If they are allowed to sleep at all." The other Crothians laughed. They expected her to cry or beg or run away. That was what prey animals did. Elena looked at the destroyed pod. Then she looked back at Rothger. Her face showed nothing. No fear, no anger, no surprise. "Understood," she said quietly. She walked to an empty corner of the room, sat down on the hard floor, and closed her eyes. The Crothians watched her for a moment, confused by her reaction. Then they returned to their conversation and forgot about her. But Elena was not sleeping. Behind her closed eyes, she was thinking. She was planning. And she was recording everything through the tiny device hidden under her skin that no scanner in this facility could detect. Her mission had officially begun. She had expected bad treatment. The reports had warned her. But actually experiencing it was different from reading about it. These aliens looked at humans and saw nothing but weakness. They saw prey. They saw something to break and destroy for their own amusement. They were wrong. Elena had spent 6 years training soldiers in the most dangerous places in the galaxy. She had fought in wars that these recruits had only heard stories about. She had survived things that would have broken most species, human or otherwise. But they did not know that. They saw a small, soft creature with no claws and no armor. Good. Let them see what they wanted to see. When the time came, she would show them the truth. 3 days passed at Outpost, Car 9. Each day was worse than the one before. Elena woke up on the first morning with her body aching from sleeping on the hard floor. The Crothians had already left for breakfast. They had not woken her. When she arrived at the meal hall, the food line was closed. "You are late," the serving officer told her. "No food for late recruits." Elena did not argue. She drank water from a fountain and went to the first training session with an empty stomach. The training was hard. The instructors pushed all the recruits to their limits. They ran obstacle courses that were designed for species much larger and stronger than humans. They practiced combat techniques that assumed the students had claws or fangs or natural armor. They studied battle tactics that made no sense for someone of Elena's size and abilities, but Elena kept up. She modified the techniques to work with her human body. She found different paths through the obstacle courses. She learned the tactics and found ways to apply them to her own strengths. The instructors noticed. They were not pleased. "The human is still here," one of them reported to Subcommander Drellick. She should have failed by now. Give her time, Drellick replied. They always break eventually. On the second day, the Crothians decided to help her break faster. It started small. Someone put a chemical in her drinking water that made her stomach hurt for hours. Someone deleted her name from the training roster, which meant she missed an important session and received a penalty mark. Someone spread a rumor that she had been caught stealing from other recruits, which made the other species avoid her. Elena said nothing. She documented everything. On the evening of the second day, she tried to file a formal complaint through the facility's computer system. The system told her there was a technical error and she should try again later. She tried 3 more times. Each time, the same error appeared. She walked to the administrative office to file the complaint in person. The officer there looked at her with cold eyes. "What is your complaint about?" The officer asked. Elena listed everything. The destroyed sleeping pod, the poisoned water, the deleted records, the false rumors. The officer listened without expression. When Elena finished, he said, "These sound like normal interpersonal conflicts. The Legion has a tradition for resolving such matters." "What tradition?" Elena asked. "Work it out among yourselves." The officer turned back to his screen. "You are dismissed." Elena stood there for a moment. Then she walked away. That night, Rothgar and his group were waiting for her outside the barracks. "We heard you tried to complain about us," Rothgar said. His yellow eyes gleamed in the dim light. "That was a mistake, human. We do not like complainers." They surrounded her. 6 massive Crothians against 1 small human. The math was not in her favor. One of them grabbed her arm and twisted it behind her back. Another one hit her in the stomach. She fell to her knees, gasping for air. "This is your last warning," Rothgar said. He leaned down close to her face. "Know your place. Stay quiet. Maybe we will let you survive the cycle." They left her there on the ground. Elena waited until they were gone. Then she slowly got up. Her stomach hurt. Her arm ached. But she had experienced much worse in her career. She went inside and lay down in her corner. Her hidden recorder had captured everything the third day brought. Something worse. The morning training session was combat practice. Recruits were paired up to practice fighting techniques. Elena was paired with a Crothian named Vorsk. He was younger than Rothgar, but just as large. Finally, Vorsk said when he saw who his partner was, "I get to break the human." The instructor explained the rules. Light contact only. The goal was to practice technique, not to injure. Vorsk ignored the rules. His first strike hit Elena in the ribs with full force. She felt something crack. His second strike knocked her to the ground. His third strike was aimed at her head. Elena rolled out of the way just in time. She got back to her feet, one arm wrapped around her damaged ribs. "Fight back, Prey," Vorsk taunted. "Show us what humans can do." Elena looked at the instructor. The instructor was watching but made no move to stop the fight. She understood then. This was not a training accident. This was planned. The instructors were part of it. She blocked Vorsk's next attack and stepped backward. She could have fought back. She had the skills to defeat him. But that was not the plan. Not yet. She let him hit her again. And again. When she finally fell and did not get up, the instructor called the match. "The human is weak," the instructor announced to everyone watching. "Let this be a lesson about allowing inferior species into the Legion." Elena was taken to the medical bay. Her injuries were not life-threatening, but they would take time to heal. The medical officer treated her with obvious reluctance. "You should go home, human," he said while wrapping her ribs. "You do not belong here." "I will stay," Elena replied. That evening, she received a message on her datapad. It was from Rothgar. "Report to the lower levels tomorrow at dawn." You have been assigned to pit duty. Elena read the message 3 times. She had heard whispers about pit duty during her time at the facility. It was a survival exercise. Recruits were put into a pit with dangerous creatures and had to survive. The last recruit sent to pit duty had lasted 4 minutes before being pulled out in critical condition. The creatures in the pit were called Garax. They were predators from the Crothian homeworld. They had been starved for weeks. This was not an official duty assignment. This was an execution sentence. Elena found Rothgar in the meal hall. He was surrounded by his group, all of them laughing and eating. She walked up to them. "I received your message," she said. The laughter stopped. Everyone turned to look at her. "Good," Rothgar said. "Then, you know what happens tomorrow." "I know." "You could run," one of the other Crothians suggested. "Try to escape the facility. We would enjoy hunting you." "I will not run," Elena said. Rothgar stood up. He towered over her, his shadow blocking out the light. "Then you will die. The Garax have not eaten in 3 weeks. They will tear you apart in seconds." "Maybe," Elena said. "Definitely." Rothgar leaned close. "Perish now, chicken, or perish tomorrow. Your choice." Elena met his gaze without blinking. "I will be there at dawn." Rothgar laughed. "The human has courage. I will give you that. It will not save you, but at least you will die with some honor." Elena turned and walked away. Behind her, the Crothians returned to their celebration. They were already planning how to describe her death to the other recruits. They did not see Elena's hand move against her leg, tapping out a coded message. They did not know that her hidden implant was sending a signal to Coalition ships waiting at the edge of the star system. She went back to the barracks and lay down in her corner. Tomorrow would be the most important day of her mission. Tomorrow would be the day she stopped pretending to be weak. Her ribs still hurt. Her body was covered in bruises. She'd have been beaten and poisoned and humiliated for 3 days. But she was not broken. She was ready. The dawn came cold and gray over Outpost KHAR-9. Elena walked through the empty corridors toward the lower levels. Her ribs still ached from yesterday's beating, but she moved with steady steps. She had faced worse pain in her career. She had survived worse situations. The lower levels were the oldest part of the facility. The walls were darker here, the lights dimmer. Most recruits never saw this area. It was reserved for special training exercises. And for pit duty, she reached a large metal door with warning signs in 12 different languages. The door opened as she approached, and she walked through. The observation gallery was already full. Word had spread quickly through the facility. A human was being sent to face the Garax. Every species wanted to see what would happen. Commander Zyrith stood at the front of the gallery with Sub-Commander Drellick beside him. Behind them stood dozens of recruits, officers, and staff members. Rothgar was there with his group. They had the best viewing positions, right at the edge of the gallery, where they could see everything clearly. Below the gallery was the pit. It was 50 feet wide and 20 feet deep. The walls were made of smooth metal that could not be climbed. Bright lights illuminated every shadow. The floor was packed dirt with dark stains in several places. Old blood that had been poorly cleaned. At the far end of the pit was a heavy metal gate. Behind the gate, Elena could hear movement. Heavy breathing. The scrape of claws against stone. The Garax. She had studied them during her preparation for this mission. They were apex predators from the Crothian homeworld. 8 legs, armored bodies, and heads that were mostly teeth. They hunted in packs and could bring down prey 10 times their size. There were 3 of them behind that gate. And they had not eaten in weeks. A voice spoke through the speakers. It was Sub-Commander Drellick. "Recruit Elena Vasquez. You have been assigned to pit duty. This is a survival exercise. You will enter the pit without weapons or armor. You must survive until the exercise is concluded. Do you understand? Elena looked up at the gallery. She could see Rothgar smiling. She could see the other recruits watching with a mix of excitement and horror. She could see Commander Zyrith leaning forward with interest. "I understand," she said. A door opened at the side of the pit, and she walked through. The door closed behind her with a loud sound. She stood alone on the dirt floor. The lights were bright and hot. The walls stretched up around her, too high and too smooth to escape. "Any last words, human?" Drellick called down. Elena looked up at him. Then she smiled Dodd. It was not a friendly smile. "Just one," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. "Watch carefully. There will be a test later." Before anyone could respond, the gate opened. The Garax came out fast. They were even more terrifying in person than in the reports. Their 8 legs moved in perfect coordination. Their armored bodies gleamed under the lights. Their jaws opened to reveal rows of teeth designed for tearing through metal. They saw Elena and charged. What happened next would be remembered for years. Elena moved, not away from the creatures. Toward them, she dropped low, sliding under the first Garax as it lunged for her. Her hand came up in a precise strike, hitting a spot beneath the creature's throat. It was a cluster of nerves that the armor did not protect. The Garax's legs collapsed, and it crashed to the ground. Paralyzed but alive, the second Garax attacked from the left. Elena spun around the first creature's body, using it as a shield. Then she jumped onto the second Garax's back. Her hands found gaps between its armor plates. She twisted its head to the side, disrupting its senses. The creature began spinning in circles, unable to tell where anything was. The third Garax was different. It was the largest and the smartest. It did not charge blindly like the others. It circled around Elena, watching her with dark eyes. Elena stepped away from the confused second Garax and faced the third. They stared at each other across the pit. The gallery had gone completely silent. "You are the leader," Elena said quietly. "Good. That makes this easier." She walked toward the Garax. Not running. Not retreating. Walking with complete confidence. The Garax did not know what to do. Every prey animal in its memory ran away. Every prey animal tried to escape. This creature was coming closer. Elena stopped 3 feet away from the beast. She looked directly into its eyes. Then she made a sound. It was not a human sound. It was a deep vibration that came from somewhere in her chest. Elena had spent months learning it from Crothian records. It was a dominance challenge in a frequency the predators understood at their deepest level. The Garax stumbled backward. Its front legs bent. Its head lowered to the ground. Submission. The pit was silent. The gallery was silent. The entire facility seemed to hold its breath. Elena turned and looked up at the observation gallery. At Commander Zyrith, whose 4 eyes had gone wide. At Sub-Commander Drellick, whose mouth hung open. At Rothgar, who had gone pale beneath his dark scales. "My name," Elena said clearly, "is Senior Instructor Elena Vasquez. I work for Terran Special Operations and the Coalition Oversight Division. I was sent here to evaluate this facility's training methods." She paused to let her words sink in. "You have failed." The silence continued for another moment. Then chaos erupted. Zyrith started shouting orders. Drellick reached for his communication device. The recruits in the gallery began talking all at once, their voices mixing into a confused noise. Elena remained standing in the pit, calm and patient. The 3 Garax lay around her, unable or unwilling to move. "Coalition enforcement ships will arrive within the hour," she continued. "They have been monitoring my transmissions since I arrived. I have recorded evidence of 17 violations of Coalition training standards. Commander Zyrith and Sub-Commander Drellick, you are under arrest." Zyrith's face twisted with rage. "She is lying." "Guards, seize her." 2 guards moved toward the pit entrance. Then they stopped. Their communication devices were buzzing with incoming signals. "Sir," one of them said, his voice shaking, 3 Coalition cruisers just entered the system. They are demanding access to the facility." Zyrith looked at Elena. Elena looked back at him. "Did you really think the Coalition would send a human here without protection?" she asked. "Did you really think we were that weak?" Rothgar was still staring at her from the gallery. His yellow eyes were different now. The contempt was gone. In its place was something new. Shock, confusion, and something that might have been respect. "How?" he asked. His voice was quiet, but Elena heard him clearly. "How did you do that?" Elena climbed out of the pit, using a ladder that the guards lowered for her. She walked through the gallery until she stood in front of Rothgar. "Humans have survived on Earth for 300,000 years, she said. "We have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. We survived because we learned. We adapted. We studied our enemies and found their weaknesses. We became the most dangerous predators on our planet, not by being the strongest, but by being the smartest." She looked at him without anger. "You thought you were throwing prey to the beasts. You were wrong. You were throwing the Instructor into her classroom." Rothgar said nothing. There was nothing he could say. The Coalition ships arrived 40 minutes later. Commander Zyrith and Sub-Commander Drellick were taken into custody. The facility was placed under Coalition control, but Elena's mission was not finished yet. She had broken the system. Now she had to decide what to build in its place, and she had to decide what to do with Rothgar and the others who had tried to kill her. The easy choice would be to arrest them all, send them home in shame, let them face punishment for what they had done. But Elena had not survived 20 years in the military by taking easy choices. She had a different idea. The next 12 hours changed everything at Outpost KHAR-9. Coalition officers moved through the facility like a storm. They collected evidence, interviewed witnesses, and locked down the command center. Commander Zyrith was taken to a holding cell, still shouting about false accusations and human tricks. Sub-Commander Drellick went quietly, his mandibles clicking nervously. Elena spent most of those hours in meetings with the Coalition investigation team. She handed over all her recordings. She explained what she had seen and experienced. She answered hundreds of questions. When the meetings finally ended, she had one more thing to do. She found the recruits gathered in the main assembly hall. All 37 of them, from every species in the cycle. They stood in uncertain groups, talking quietly among themselves. No one knew what would happen next. Elena walked to the front of the hall. The talking stopped. Every eye turned to look at her. The human who had defeated 3 Gerax with her bare hands. The human who had brought down the facility's commanders. The human who was not what any of them had expected. Rothgar stood at the back of the group with the other Crothians. His scales looked duller than usual. His posture was hunched. He looked like someone waiting for a death sentence. "You are probably wondering what happens now," Elena said. Her voice carried clearly through the silent hall. "Whether the facility will close, whether you will be sent home, whether your careers are finished before they started." No one answered. The silence was heavy with fear and uncertainty. "Let me tell you the truth," Elena continued. "Most of you did nothing wrong." The words caused movement through the crowd. Confused looks, whispered questions. "You were put into a broken system," Elena said. "You were told that abuse was normal. You watched bad things happen because you were taught that watching was safer than acting. That is not your fault. That is the fault of the people who built this system." She paused, looking across the assembly. She saw relief on some faces, hope on others. "But some of you participated," she said, and her voice grew harder. "Some of you enjoyed it, and some of you let it." Her eyes found Rothgar at the back of the hall. "Sergeant Rothgar," she said. "Step forward." The crowd parted. Rothgar walked through the gap, his steps slow and heavy. He stopped in front of Elena and stood there, waiting. "You tried to kill me," Elena said quietly. "You threw me to starving predators. You expected to watch me die for your entertainment." "Yes," Rothgar said. His voice was barely a whisper. "If I had been what you thought I was, an ordinary recruit with no special training, I would be dead right now. Someone's daughter would be dead. Someone who trusted this institution to keep her safe would be gone forever." Rothgar nodded. He did not try to make excuses. "Why?" Elena asked. "Why did you do it?" The question seemed to surprise him. He stood silent for a long moment, struggling to find words. "I was afraid," he finally said. "Afraid of what?" "Of you, of humans." He looked at her with something like desperation in his yellow eyes. "Humans are new to the galaxy. You are different from everything we understand. You do not follow the rules that other species follow. Every time a human joins a unit, everything changes. The rankings shift. The certainties disappear." He took a deep breath. "On my homeworld, I was the best," he said. "The strongest. The fastest. The most honored warrior. I came here expecting to be the best again. Instead, I found species who could outthink me, outplan me, make everything I am feel worthless. The human was supposed to be weak. The human was supposed to be something I could defeat. So you tried to destroy what you did not understand," Elena said. "Because understanding it meant accepting that the universe is bigger than your place in it." "Yes." Elena looked at him for a long moment. The hall was completely silent. Everyone was waiting to see what she would do. "That is the most honest thing anyone has said in this facility since I arrived," she said. Rothgar blinked, confused by her response. "This is the lesson that Carnine was supposed to teach," Elena continued, raising her voice so everyone could hear. "Not cruelty, not dominance, but this. The galaxy is full of beings who will challenge everything you think you know about strength. The ones who break are the ones who cannot adapt. The ones who succeed are the ones who learn." She turned back to Rothgar. "You have a choice, Sergeant. You can accept punishment and go home. Spend the rest of your life on a planet that no longer needs you, remembered as the warrior who failed. Or you can stay here, retrain, learn that real strength is not about being the most dangerous thing in the room." Rothgar stared at her. "You would allow that? After what I did?" "I am not allowing anything," Elena said. "I am offering an opportunity. What you do with it is your decision." The silence stretched on. Every person in the hall watched Rothgar, waiting for his answer. Slowly, Rothgar lowered himself to one knee. It was a Crothian gesture of deep respect and commitment. "Teach me," he said. Elena nodded. "Stand up, Sergeant. Your training begins now." Rothgar rose to his feet. Something had changed in his face. The arrogance was gone. In its place was something new. Humility, determination, the beginning of understanding. "What about the others?" asked a voice from the crowd. It was one of the Velthari recruits, a tall being with silver skin and glowing eyes. "The officers who allowed this to happen. The instructors who participated. They will face coalition justice," Elena said. "Some of them will lose their positions. Some will face criminal charges. The system that allowed this abuse will be torn down and rebuilt. And who will rebuild it?" Another recruit asked. Elena looked across the assembly. At the 37 recruits who had come here hoping to become soldiers. At the broken facility that had failed them. At the future that waited to be shaped. "We will," she said. "All of us, together." The next few weeks were difficult. Coalition investigators continued their work, uncovering more problems than Elena had originally documented. The facility's entire command structure was removed. New officers arrived from Coalition headquarters to take temporary control. Elena was offered the position of permanent facility commander. She refused. "I am an instructor, not an administrator," she told the Coalition officials. "Put me where I can teach." So they made her chief training officer instead. She redesigned the entire training program from the ground up. Physical tests were balanced with mental challenges. Combat training emphasized cooperation as much as individual skill. Species were mixed together from the first day, forced to work with each other instead of against each other. Rothgar became her first special project. Every day, after regular training, she worked with him privately. She taught him human fighting techniques. She explained human history and culture. She showed him how humans had survived, not by being the strongest species on Earth, but by being the most adaptable. "You kept hitting me harder because I kept getting up," Elena said during one session. "That confused you. You expected the pain to make me surrender." "Yes," Rothgar admitted. "That is how it works with most species. Humans are different. We call it endurance. We can tolerate pain that would kill other beings. We heal from injuries that should be permanent. We keep going when every logical calculation says we should stop." She smiled slightly. "It drives other species crazy." Rothgar made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I understand that now." "Good," Elena said. "Because the next lesson is harder. I am going to teach you how to lose." Rothgar looked at her with confusion. "In Crothian culture, losing means weakness," Elena explained. "In human culture, losing means learning. Every time we fail, we study what went wrong. We adapt. We try again. Our greatest victories often come after our worst defeats." She put her hand on his shoulder, which was a very human gesture that he was still getting used to. "You lost to me in the pit," she said. "That does not make you weak. It makes you a student. The question is whether you are ready to learn." Rothgar considered her words. Then he nodded. "I am ready," he said, and he was. 6 months passed at Outpost Car 9. The facility was almost unrecognizable from the place Elena had first arrived. The old pits were still there, but they no longer held starving predators. Advanced simulation technology had replaced the real creatures. Recruits could experience dangerous situations without the risk of death. The point was to learn, not to suffer. The barracks had been reorganized. Species were mixed together in every room. A Crothian might sleep next to a human, a Volthri next to a Morvith. At first, there had been conflicts, arguments, fights, but over time, something changed. The recruits began to see each other as teammates instead of competitors. Elena stood on the observation platform overlooking the main training ground. Below her, the current cycle of recruits was running through an urban combat exercise. She watched them work together, solving problems as a team instead of fighting alone. A human recruit was leading one squad. She was young, barely out of basic training, but she gave commands with confidence. Her teammates, including 2 Crothians twice her size, followed her orders without question. 6 months ago, that would have been impossible. Now it was normal. Footsteps approached from behind. Elena did not turn around. She already knew who it was. Rothgar came to stand beside her. He had changed in the past 6 months. His posture was different. His eyes were different. The arrogance that had defined him before was gone, replaced by something steadier and more grounded. He had earned a new title, Training Coordinator. It was his job to help new recruits adjust to the facility's changed culture. He was very good at it. The inspection team arrives tomorrow, Rothger said. Coalition High Command wants to see if the changes have worked. They have worked, Elena said. They want to decide if the facility should stay open. It should. Rothger hesitated. They want to speak with me. About my crimes. Elena finally turned to look at him. And what will you tell them? The truth, he said. That I was a monster because it was easier than being afraid. That a human showed me another way. That I am still learning what that way means. He paused. Will that be enough? I do not know, Elena said honestly. But it is the only thing worth saying. They stood together in silence, watching the recruits below. The combat exercise ended, and the teams gathered for evaluation. A human instructor stepped forward to analyze their performance. The recruits listened carefully, regardless of species. You could have destroyed me, Rothger said quietly. In the pit, you could have killed the Garax instead of just stopping them. You could have demanded my arrest the moment you had evidence. Why did you not? Elena considered the question before answering. Humans have been the new species before, she said. We have been the ones that others looked at and saw only weakness. We have been underestimated and dismissed and attacked. We know what it is like. She turned to face him directly. We also know that enemies can become allies if you give them the chance to choose. Revenge would have felt good for a moment. But building something better lasts longer. And if I had not chosen to change? Elena smiled slightly. Then, I would have demonstrated why underestimating humans is a mistake. We are very good at demonstrations. Rothger made a sound that was definitely a laugh. Yes, I learned that. The next day, the inspection team arrived. 3 coalition admirals from 3 different species. They toured the facility. They interviewed recruits and instructors. They reviewed training records and performance data. Elena gave them a full presentation on the changes she had implemented. She showed them the results: higher completion rates, fewer injuries, better cooperation between species. She explained her philosophy of training through challenge instead of abuse. When she finished, the senior admiral spoke. He was a Velthari, tall and silver-skinned, with centuries of military experience. This is impressive work, Instructor Vasquez, he said. But I have one question. The old methods produce strong individual warriors. Your methods produce teams. Which is better for actual combat? Elena had expected this question. With respect, Admiral, you are asking the wrong question, she said. Individual warriors can win battles. Teams can win wars. The galaxy is too dangerous for any species to survive alone. We need to learn to work together, or we will all fall separately. The Admiral studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. The Coalition will continue funding Outpost Car-9, he announced. Instructor Vasquez will remain in command of training operations. We recommend that her methods be studied for implementation at other facilities. Elena felt relief wash through her, but she kept her expression professional. Thank you, Admiral. After the inspection team departed, Elena returned to the observation platform. The sun was setting over the facility, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. She stood alone, thinking about everything that had happened. She had come here expecting to find an institution beyond saving. Instead, she had found proof that change was possible, that fear and hatred could be overcome when met with competence and compassion. Rothger found her there an hour later. The verdict came through, he said. The Coalition reviewed my case. They decided that my actions since your arrival demonstrate genuine reform. I will face official censure, but no further punishment. I can continue serving. Good, Elena said. You have earned it. I have not earned anything yet, Rothger replied. I am just beginning to understand what I need to learn. Elena smiled. That was the right answer. They stood together as the last light faded from the sky. Below them, recruits were gathering for evening meal. Humans and Crothians walked side by side. Velthari and Morvith shared tables. The old divisions were not completely gone, but they were healing. What happens next? Hrothgar asked. We keep teaching, Elena said. We keep building. We show the galaxy that there is another way to be strong. And if they do not listen, then we show them again and again, until they understand. She looked at him with steady eyes. Humans are patient, Hrothgar. We have been waiting 300,000 years to reach the stars. We can wait a little longer for the rest of the galaxy to catch up. Hrothgar nodded slowly. I think I understand now why humans are so strange to us. You do not think in generations. You think in centuries. Sometimes longer, Elena agreed. We remember where we came from. We never forget that we were once the weakest creatures on our planet. Every day we survive is a victory against the universe that tried to destroy us. She turned back to watch the facility below. That is what I wanted the Coalition to understand when they sent me here. Humans are not strong because of our bodies. We are strong because we refuse to accept that strength is only physical. We find other ways. We adapt, we survive, and we lift up others who are willing to learn. The stars were appearing now, thousands of points of light in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, humanity's ships were traveling to distant worlds. Humans were building new colonies, making new friends, facing new challenges. And here on Car9, a small piece of the future was taking shape. A place where species that have been enemies for millennia were learning to work together. A place where strength was measured not by the ability to destroy, but by the ability to build. Elena Vasquez looked out at that future, and for the first time in her long career, she allowed herself to feel something beyond duty. She felt hope. The galaxy was vast and old and full of dangers. But humanity had been facing dangers since before they discovered fire. They had walked barefoot across continents. They had crossed oceans in wooden boats. They had reached for the moon and caught it. They would reach for the stars too. And they would bring their strange philosophy with them, that enemies could become friends, that weakness could become strength, that the universe was not a place to conquer, but a place to share. Hrothgar spoke again, breaking the silence. What do you call this? This thing you are building here? Elena thought for a moment. Then she smiled. We call it the future, she said. And everyone is invited. Below them, a Crothian recruit helped a human recruit to her feet after a training fall. They walked together toward the meal hall, talking like old friends. It was a small moment, a tiny change in the vast machinery of the galaxy. But Elena knew that small moments were how great changes began, and this was just the beginning.